Welcome back to another edition of the Gabagools Podcast, episode 44, for those listening at home. I'm your host, Jeff. With me today, Dizzy, Disco, Reindeer, Lovin' Dan. How we feeling?
They call me Fighting Dan because I'm throwing out the jabs, a couple right hooks, maybe a little underhook there.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. No, I'm feeling loose, feeling limber, as we usually say. It is starting out with the weather report. I wrote this one down because I didn't want to forget. 43 today, 43 out. The sun just came out. The last couple days this week, it's kind of a little gloomier. Sun is out today, so go ahead and do yourself a favor. Get outside, maybe call up your buddy who lives down the block. Throw the pigskin around for a few minutes, get out there, do something wild.
go wild, go crazy. Last chance of the year, last chance workout, as they like to say at all those gyms.
Yeah, last chance for this year, right? Then you can start the next year. You can go to the gym the first 2 weeks and then just quit after that, and then kind of do the rest of the year like you normally do, right?
Yeah. Are you a see you next year guy? Like, you're at the office or with like buddies, you're like, oh, see you next year.
I actually forgot to wish a few of my work buddies Happy New Year. I usually, I say, a Happy New Year. I was going to say it on Saturday. So no, I am not a see you next year, and I'm definitely not somebody who's going to see you for the first time in March or April and say, "Oh, hey, Happy New Year."
Yeah, yeah. I always laugh at that, and I don't know if it's more of just like a workplace setting or whatever. And this is more of just like an older thing. I think it's kind of phased out, but it's probably because all the jokes about it. But there was always that one person that would always be like, "Oh, see you next year," and you see him like the next day. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
cool, you know.
good one, Kev.
Yeah. But um, we'd have to lead off the show with the long-awaited first, finally in 10 years, fantasy championship. We've been running this league for 10 years. This would be my fourth opportunity to try to win a title. 2016 lost. 2021 lost a heartbreaker on Monday night, and then last year, Burrow and the boys, I was down QBs, so I ended up losing that one to Jeremy, but finally got over the hump. I've been waiting to say it too. Curses be damned. We got over that hump. It was a long time coming.
And I think we mentioned this last week, but it was on paper, it was a really good matchup between two top teams. You got to give little Richard four bags. You got to give him his props. Let's give him his flowers. He's got a great team. I was hoping HN would deliver a little bit better for him in the playoffs, but you know what? It was a hard fought matchup, and you got to give this Gabagool on my other side here on the screen his flowers as well. Good luck, or congratulations, I should say, to you and your team for. You said 10 years now. This is the 10th year in
Yeah,
the
this
league.
is season 10 of this
It's a
league,
long
and
time.
been
Long
a long
time to
time.
not win, especially for someone like you.
Yeah, and then to make the championship like 3 out of the last 4 years now, and then if I would have not pulled it out, it would have been, you know,
You might not be here with us to tell
no,
to tell
no.
the
We
tale of
would
the
have just
tape.
we would have retired, and I might have had to pull up Michael Jordan, type up a nice letter, say I'm back. But yeah, obviously it was a really close matchup, cut down to the end. I still have Kittle, and we do play in that IDP league. So, Branch from Detroit and then Havunga from San Francisco still all going tonight. I have a 12-point lead. He's got nobody left. I was a little slightly lightly nervous last night too when it came down to Bijan having like that big first half, and I said if they decide to run him into the ground like
Yeah.
they should have,
Yes.
they would end up pulling up that matchup, which we'll talk about later. But he was virtually non-existent in that second half, so thank God for that because if I would have been a little nervous if he would have pulled out like a 5 or 10 point lead, just because of just how the stars align. All my players put up zeros, and it would be like that would just be something that would happen to me of like a catastrophic loss like that. So
Yeah, I could have seen that, and I'll tell you, if something like that would have happened, um, not only would you have not been doing this, you would have probably been what they say heartbroken. right?
Safe to say I've been, pouring a bottle of water on my head, having some soggy sorrows. So glad we don't have to worry about it. Glad tonight's matchup, I can just sit back, relax, and strap it down and just kind of enjoy the football game and not
Now
have
let
to
me
worry.
let me ask you this: as someone who's already won, right? What do you do tonight? Do you crack open your finest bottle of red wine or tequila or whiskey, whatever your choice is? Do you just go dry and then go crazy tomorrow or the weekend? What does something like that happen?
So yesterday I did have, because had some eggnog, and then I threw a little bit of my what is it? I can't Knob Creek. So it's a Knob Creek
Okay, okay.
maple whiskey. So I threw a little in there, a little celebratory, whiskey. And then obviously celebrate a little bit more tomorrow because I'll be at the Winter Classic. So just have a couple brewskis and watch some hockey and kind of just celebrate. And then once I get the trophy from Jeremy, we'll really, take the trophy on a little parade.
So we're not going too crazy. We're having just a little Knob Creek. We're not down in a whole bottle.
No, no downing a whole bottle. We're
All
gonna
right.
keep it modest. We're gonna,
Okay.
and maybe a bottle of champagne,
There you
maybe.
go. There you go. Douse yourself in a bottle of champagne, or maybe once you get the trophy, you.
That's more of it. I'm more waiting on the trophy for the big one. Maybe get a nice, I don't know about a nice cigar, but just a cigar in general.
There you go.
Because the only time I smoke them is if I win a championship. So
I got to be honest. I don't know the feeling. Well, we did win one in high school. We had a league, but that was like a group thing for a class.
I remember you
So
telling me about that because I
yeah.
remember like talking about fantasy back then with you, and you were like, "Yeah, we did it in school." I'm like, "You
Tell you
did one
what,
in school."
the team that year, top three players, I had Rogers, who was just still killing his prime in Green Bay, had Megatron, and then we had MJD on Jacksonville, who was just a freaking beast. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that was a fun year.
yeah, and it's funny though because this was always just like the monkey on my back. This league specifically couldn't win it, no matter what I tried, no matter what we did, what trades we made, what you know year long dynasty. Looking into it, would get to the promised land. The amount of semifinals too. Because from 2016, so I did like a 1 year rebuild, and I drafted Mahomes at that point. Was able to trade for Hill, had Kelsey, so I was like, okay, we're set. We've talked about on previous podcasts too, trying to go through that. And still not winning, not getting over the hump because of one or two last minute trades before like the deadline that just happened, and those specific players went off against me in the semifinal, so it was like one of those heartbreaking losses in the semis, and then finally got over those humps, but then lost in the championships. But finally, monkeys off my back, so obviously had to rep Burrow because he did carry the squad this year. Last in our league format too, you get points per completion, so obviously he put up like a nice 68er, and honestly, that was a difference maker. If he doesn't go off like he did, I probably don't win this matchup.
You could say that again. And then, I think Rich had Caleb in
Yeah,
one of his
Caleb,
spots, and
Caleb, and his defense. His defense put up, overall, it's like a 12-point difference currently. It might go up tonight, but his defense let him down. He had multiple players do virtually nothing. He had a guy go get a 0 on Saturday. I was lucky enough to have McConkey put up 29. Burrow 68, Chase 21, and then I think like Kyron put me up at 18. So I was able to erase the deficit after that Christmas with Lamar and Henry. I was a little nervous, not gonna lie, because it came down to that Thursday game with Caleb, and if he did anything
yeah, you
against
can
you,
say that again.
and
Oh man.
it's funny because I know he's going to listen to this part of the podcast because I'm going to tell him to listen to it. But obviously that was always the end goal for both of us this year was to make the championship, be on different sides, so we could face off in the championship and let the better man win. And I'm glad that I was finally able to pull one out.
I like the little jab in there. The better man win. I like that. I like that
I didn't say
one.
I was the better man. I was, it was more
No,
of
yeah.
just mutual respect of it because obviously it's been a long time coming. So, when he joined the league, that was always a goal. I mean, I think he learned after a while it's not just everyone beat up on Jeff. It's more of like, hey, how can we help each other? Kind of like what we do with trades. It's like, okay, obviously if you need this guy, I could help you with this. You help me next year if I'm out. Same thing. So.
It's a real team effort, if you will.
You have to, and that's the thing I think with Dynasty that a lot of people don't get is that you need to kind of play in 2 to 3 year windows with with your team. Like you can't get stagnant. I mean, Jeremy for one has been a guy who's had like crazy patience with his team, where he'll make moves, but only if he needs to. Doesn't go full rebuild, doesn't do that, kind of just lets it happen. And it's kind of an interesting situation to watch somebody do that. And then you get the other people like me who trades their whole team away. So yeah, we'll see what the future brings, but at least we'll celebrate the championship.
I think they would call that a very active player or a trader, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I've said it on multiple podcasts before too, when we were doing like the pre-draft process. It's about what getting draft picks. And then if you like a player at that spot, or if you need to move up, you could use those draft picks to trade up to get the player you want. That might be the missing piece. I mean, Rich's team specifically this year, he had Bowers, Thomas, Caleb. Did I already say Brian Thomas?
You just did, yeah.
Malik Neighbors he had, and then he also had Roma Dunze. But then you throw in two guys that he had last year. He had Bijan, so he drafted Bijan last year, and then he made that trade with you for Achan. So I mean, his team is not going anywhere anytime soon. He needs to figure out the QB situation. T Law got hurt, so that obviously hurt him. And then if Caleb continues to kind of sputter, that's going to limit the ceiling that he has. But overall, great matchup, great year overall.
And honestly, real quick, great minds think alike because I drafted some of the same guys he did the last 2 years. I took Bijan 2 years ago, and then I took Bowers and Neighbors with this draft. I wanted to get Brian Thomas because, I mean,
he fell in our league too, to like 2.5 or 2.6. I was shocked,
which is nuts. Yeah,
it is, especially when you start really like looking at the dynasty landscape and just seeing like certain players. I mean, even Ladd McConkey, I think he went later, like late first, early second, but still, when you get these guys that you could find later in the draft, you kind of don't even need to mortgage your future with moving
right.
first if you don't want to. I mean, I like to because I'll, work with the pieces I have. I mean, like right now, I'm satisfied. I got the championship finally. So like, I don't have any like, oh, well, I should have done this. Like, I did everything I could have. I mortgaged 2 years of first and, let's ride.
Well, and it's tough to find those guys too. I mean, those are two really good examples the last couple of years or even this year with Thomas and McConkey. But it can be tough to find those guys in the second, mid-second round or even third round. And you don't always get them every year. Some years you have deeper, receiver drafts. Those two though, this past year, I mean, Brian Thomas, what he's doing this year, he's been a freaking monster.
Yeah, just in general, that class is probably going to go down in history as one of the greatest classes, especially for fantasy football. I mean, Bowers, we'll touch on him a little bit later, but breaking records left and right. So enough cheerleading for myself here. We'll keep it modest, and we'll jump into week 17. Let's lead us off, Dan.
Real quick too, isn't there like a firework feature on here? You should have done that for yourself when you proclaimed.
It's because you're doing it on your phone. That's why. That's why I was asking.
Okay.
I think it's like celebrate. It was like if we said a certain word, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, maybe? No, celebrate. Happy birthday.
Happy something.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Kwanzaa.
No, I don't know. That was.
If it's not Kwanzaa, I don't know what it is.
And we did it last week, and somehow it went off. So.
Alrighty, week 17. Boy, time flies. Season is almost over. What do we do, Jeffrey? We start every week on the Thursday night, but this week was a little bit different. Starting on Wednesday, Christmas Day. A couple Christmas games for you out there. So we start with the first game. We go ho, ho, ho. Santa comes early as Mahomes has vintage game to cruise past Steelers 29-10. Texans slayed by King Henry and MVP hopeful Lamar 31-2. Yee.
Yikes.
Bears lose 10th straight as they muster up a whopping 3 points and give fans lumps of coal day after Christmas. You know what I felt like when I saw this game was 6-3. I felt like Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation when he finds out he didn't get the bonus and he got the Jelly on the Month Club, and he starts going on that rampage with his boss, and that's how I felt.
Yeah, I mean that. I feel like that's moderate compared to
Yeah,
a lot of other people.
yeah. Herbert and McConkey, all Chargers need to rout Pats 47. Bengals top Broncos in OT thriller. Keep playoff hopes alive. 30-24 Bengals. Rams 10 points in second quarter, just enough to hold on to first in the West. 13-9. Barkley hits 2,000 yards as Eagles pummel Cowboys 41-7. 5 more touchdowns for Baker. Bucks cruised past Carolina. Look to win division next week. 48-14. Bills shut out Jets for third quarter. I'm sorry. Bills shut out Jets for 3 quarters en route to 13th win, 40-14. Drew locks in, slings 4 touchdowns as Giants take down Colts 45-33. Brock Bowers is that dude. Vegas wins 25-10. Brian Thomas Jr. continues big year, should say monster year, as Jags beat Titans 2013. Dolphins beat Bad News Browns 20-3. That's all I got for that one.
Yeah, not missing much.
And potentially the 2 best games of the week. Vikings go up by 17 at the end of the third quarter. Pat comes back storming, but falls short again late, 27-25 Minnesota. And once again, Jaden puts team on his back to save the day in overtime, kind of like Superman. 30-24. And of course, we have the game tonight, Detroit at San Francisco, 7:15.
Awesome. Well done as always. All right, let's jump in. Obviously, you have to jump in with the Wednesday game on Netflix of all things too. For how much we pay for Netflix, you'd hope you get some live games. So there you go. Obviously, Kansas City won pretty decidingly against Pittsburgh. We've kind of said it in the last couple of weeks that Pittsburgh's offense is just sputtering. They did get George Pickens back, but it really didn't make much of a difference. They're pretty much going to go as far as Russell Wilson takes them. You would think that they would ride Najee a little bit more, but like Jalen Warren has been he's been on the scene since he was kind of, I don't know if he was undrafted or not, or a later round pick, but he's been kind of a thorn in the sides of those Najee Harris owners for fantasy, just because, he's been the one that's on the field while Najee's kind of just, getting the like little, 10-point games. But Kansas City proving once again, they're a good team, took out a good Steelers team. And they clinched home field. I think they clinched home field then. And then, Mahomes looked good. Well, good-ish, I should say. But Hollywood Brown coming back, they might have like just the fastest wide receiver group in the league with Xavier Worthy, Marquise Brown. It's very hard to, keep up with these guys.
Yeah, Kansas City just continues to roll and do what they do. They win this one a little bit with a bigger margin, so it looks a little bit better for them. You just kind of get the feel. It's like, who's gonna beat Kansas City this year? I know there's a couple other really good teams. I know Buffalo, I think did beat them, right? But
Buffalo did, and they beat them pretty decidingly too. It wasn't really that close. I don't remember. I wish I would have had it down, but in my opinion, it wasn't a really close game, and I felt like Josh Allen kind of just has taken that team to a new level, and the defense kind of stepped up when they needed to against Mahomes.
we'll see though. When it comes to the playoffs, it was great for Josh to beat him in the regular season, but obviously the playoffs is when it really counts. And those two are a couple of trains on course to collide again. And I mean, I think a lot of people would like to see Buffalo win because Kansas City's kind of become the Patriots of when they had Brady all those years.
Right.
They're one of the best teams, if not the best team, pretty much almost every year now. I mean, they only had one loss this year. I mean, we're talking about a team that almost went undefeated, and we just added that 17th game in the regular season recently, so they almost made history, becoming the first 17-0 regular season team. But um, you know, they're they're just I don't know, they're just it's the Chiefs dynasty. We'll see what happens. I'd like to see Buffalo beat them. There's a couple other teams. If Baltimore plays well enough and King Henry does his thing, which it seems like he does every week, it gets interesting. But yeah, Kansas City is they're just good.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you before we transition to the Baltimore game. Do you think they three-peat? Yes or no?
I guess I would say the odds are in their favor more than anything else, or at least anyone else. So I guess yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool to see history because I don't think it's ever been done in the modern Super Bowl era of a team doing a three-peat. If it is, leave it in the comments. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any team that's ever gone three in a row, which would be a feat, and that'd be kind of cool to see. Also, Mahomes isn't the worst. Like, he isn't like that guy that you're like rooting against. Like
No,
he's not like the LeBron where people really hate him. You know what I mean? But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Moving into the other MVP candidate or the MVP candidate leading the way now. And I know I'm not changing my tune on it because I actually have another guy that should win it, and he might, but we'll get to that later. Is Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens winning 31-2? What an embarrassing game for Houston. Let's start off with the worst part of it. CJ Stroud led in passing, and it was only 185 yards, and they didn't do anything. Just an awful showing from Baltimore. I mean, not from Baltimore. They look good. Houston has been terrible pretty much since Diggs tore his ACL. But the sophomore slump hit Stroud hard. I think he does bounce back. I don't think this is a one-hit wonder just because he's got too much talent. And just a genuine guy too. But pretty much ever since he did the big brother to Caleb, he's been on a downward spiral. So, sucks to see Houston only put up 2, which is once again crazy number. But Derrick Henry putting up 147. Mark Andrews has come alive the last 10 or so games. And Lamar, is showing why he is an MVP candidate. And I think, anyone would be upset. I mean, I think it might be 3 in a row for him too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they were just showing the numbers between him and Allen, and I don't know if there was another one up there, but yeah, you know what,
Probably Burrow. Probably Burrow.
it might have been. I mean, you know what, you got to give it to Lamar. He's had a really, really awesome, amazing season. Um, but we've mentioned this. The Texans started the year really well, and they have just they hit a slide. It's been a landslide for a couple months now, and I don't know if it just injuries. Yes, there's been a bit of a sophomore slump, but Stroud ever since the first couple weeks of the season, Nico Collins got hurt, then Diggs ended up going down with his injury out for the year, and now Tank Dell obviously
Yeah,
is done for this year. I think Collins is back, but you know
Collins has been
you
back.
you
Yeah,
had you had that three-headed kind of beast, if you will, with I think Dalton Schultz over there at tight end, who's a solid tight end.
yeah.
And then, of course, they were running the ball with Joe Mixon. But that offense was really good to start the year. And then they, for whatever reason, have not been anywhere near. They've been a shadow of themselves. And, I actually don't know what the record is. They're probably still above 500. I don't know if they're going to make
Yeah,
the
they clinched
playoffs.
they clinched the division. They're
All
9 and
right.
7.
So
And that's just because that division's
yeah,
pick. So
but that's going to be a team. They're going to make the playoffs. That's probably a one and out for them. 'Cause just
yeah,
with the way they've been playing, I don't care who they're playing.
Mixon has been non-existent the
And
last weeks, pretty
and the
much. So
first month of the year, I wouldn't have said that because they look so freaking good. So
right,
it's odd to see that, but yeah. On the flip side, Baltimore's the real deal.
yeah, simple as that. Derrick Henry's done what he needed to do. Moving into the Thursday game, Bears lose 6-3. Um,
Yeah.
what a horrible game to watch. At home, you only put up 3. They had a couple of chances. Caleb had one get called back due to a holding call. I mean, the offense line, there's not much you can say about it. I mean, it sucks because, you're not seeing what Caleb can really do, except for when it's basically garbage time. Um, you got to hope for Bears fans. You got to hope that Ryan Poles goes in and gets a good head coach. I'm guessing it's Ben Johnson from Detroit. I'm sticking to it with him. I don't think they get Vrabel. I think Vrabel goes to the Jets. I'll be 100% honest. Or it's Rex Ryan there, but yeah, I don't know. Just as a whole, it's just just as I don't know, just a bad team. And even in the flip side too, Seattle didn't look very good either, and that kind of proved it and why they're not making the playoffs too. They fell off a pretty hard cliff. Um, I don't know if you could really blame it on Geno Smith or not, but they've had a couple tough injuries. Walker wasn't playing, but Charbonnet looked good too. So
You know, um, it's the bad news Bears.
yeah, I
They
mean
have
it's
been for a while now, as we know. So yeah, just 6-3. I mean, this maybe the worst Thursday night game of the year, maybe ever. It just yeah. What what
Evers is
can what can
Evers
you
a strong
say?
Evers a strong one because of there was multiple in one year. I remember it. Do you remember the color rush jerseys?
No,
Oh
I
my
don't think
god.
so. Maybe I
Yeah,
do.
they had a specific um jersey that they wore that was like a special like bright neon color. And they for whatever reason it was always Jacksonville and Tennessee. And that was when like Derrick Henry
Mm.
was kind of coming on the scene. So that made it fun, but just overall we're talking Blake Bortles, not very good game. But yeah, pretty bad from the Bears. I mean, gotta hope you draft well in the first and kind of get a new head coach and see if they can turn it around, or it's going to be a long, long time again.
I
Um,
tell you what, you go on Hard Knocks, and you got all this hype around you, and then you turn around and you start 4-2, and you're like, hey, this team could have a little something. We got a little juice, you know what I mean? And then you lose
I
10
know
in
the
a
feeling.
row.
Know the feeling all too well, my friend.
Oh,
But yeah.
yeah.
All right. Moving into less depressing stuff. Chargers dominate the Patriots. Not really a surprise there, but Justin Herbert is unlocked in that offense with Jim Harbaugh, which is awesome to see. They're back in the playoffs. That'll be fun. That just shows what a great coaching job he's done there. Dobbins, they were kind of non-existent on the running game prior to him coming back this week, which is great, right for playoffs. And then I'm going to make a bold statement: is Lad McConkey's a top 3 dynasty rookie wide receiver.
I was going to ask you, he's probably the Herbert's favorite guy to throw to. He's been great all year. Quite like you said, Quentin Johnston has not taken that next step that everyone thought like, okay, come out of college, he was the best receiver they thought in that draft. Like he's going to be really good, and he profiles as a guy who should be good. But McConkey, man, he's like a little Wes Welker, Julian Edelman type guy, and he's good.
He's way better too. That's the funny thing is like
He's really good. He's fun to watch.
he is a lot of fun to watch, and that was the thing too is like a lot of people would like to say that he like comp to like Cooper Cup, and I think that's a lazy comp. I mean, it's a good one, but like Cooper Cup's feet work or footwork is just out of this world, and it's also a lazy comp. I mean, it's just they're both wide receivers. Like, you know, what he does too is a little bit different than Cooper Cup. But yeah, um, he is his favorite target, which is great. He almost had 3 touchdowns on a big, fantasy week, so that would have been cool. Herbert just lobbed it a little bit too far for him, but Herbert has put together one of his best seasons, in my opinion, just as a whole, because he's only has 21 passing touchdowns, but he only has 3 interceptions. So what they're doing in that offense is unlocking what he can do as an actual quarterback and kind of a field general in that aspect. I mean, in the past, we've seen him throw for 400, 500 yards. I don't know, 500, but 400 yards, multiple touchdown game. So he can do it. And I think that's the nice part about, Harbaugh going there is they can establish the run and kind of move forward with it, and kind of unlock when, Herbert needs to take over a game. He's been able to do it. So
You'd have to look that up, but if he's got 3 picks on the year, that might be the fewest.
it is, yeah.
Um, it's got to be. I mean, that's 21. You'd think 21 passing touchdowns is a little light,
It is, yeah.
but for that team and that system, they don't need him, like you said, to throw 40 or 50.
Nope. So on the other side, obviously the Patriots are sitting at the number 1 overall pick currently. I don't think that sticks, but I mean it's very possible. They'll probably go Travis Hunter at that point, 1-1. So that'll be fun to see. But Drake May, he looks good for him. So for what it's
Yeah.
worth, one little positive. Next game, Cincinnati. I don't know if you caught that game, but this was an absolute thriller of a game. Cincinnati took down Denver in a must-win to stay in the playoffs. Burrow went off for 412 yards. Unlocked T. Higgins for his 3 touchdown game and 131 in the air. He still fed Chase, and then it was actually a really close game. Came down to 8 seconds left in the game. Bo Nix had that long touchdown pass to Marvin Mims. He woke up for those dynasty football players out there. He finally had that big game that everyone's been waiting for. So. Sean Payton effect. I think it's real. I think Bo Nix was the perfect QB for them in that system. And it's going to be fun to see how they grow together over the next couple coming years.
We mentioned this, I don't know if it was a month ago or even more than that. We said Cincinnati's done, right? Bengals are out. There's no way that they're making the playoffs. And you
I
know
have it
what?
I have it clipped from last week, actually, of you saying that too.
In a
Even
in a
last week you said it.
in a perfect world, I mean, we're almost there. I know they still need Denver to lose, and we already talked about Kansas City. So I think my biggest question to you is Kansas City plays Denver next week. Denver needs to win. Kansas City's already got the number 1 seed. Are they sitting Mahomes?
Yeah, I think they sit Mahomes.
And honestly, too, if you're Kansas City, wouldn't you rather play Denver if you had to play them over Cincinnati? I mean, you probably don't want to play Burrow, especially with the way he's been playing. Bo Nix
No.
has been good, but you'd probably rather take your chances against the Broncos if you had to play them.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Just as a whole, obviously Burrow, you don't want to see him in a shootout, and the way he's been playing,
Yeah.
8 consecutive weeks now with like 250 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He can run the ball in too. That's the cool part about Burrow is he's kind of like he's not a big rusher, but he will do it when the game's on the line. And Shiesty is arguably my MVP. And this was like what I've been saying for weeks too, is if he had a chance, if they make the playoffs, you have to give him the MVP. His numbers are way better than everyone else's, except for the rushing. But then again, it's like, okay, is the MVP the most valuable player on the team, or is it a rushing thing? Because then you can give it to Saquon Barkley. Like you said, he's over 2K. He's on the verge of breaking records.
Yeah, we'll see if the Eagles decide to let him play. I think you have to, right? I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't.
It depends because here's the thing is like you don't want him to get hurt right before the playoffs, and then you don't want your offensive line because you're not going to put him out there with your backup offensive line either. So I would love to see it, but I don't think it happens. So
That would be a shame. I'm sure Barkley is a guy who maybe wouldn't necessarily mind that much, but
no,
at the same
he doesn't
time,
care.
like
Yeah,
if he plays, he's breaking it. And of course, who are they playing? I think they're playing the Giants.
yeah,
How fitting would that be?
yeah. He might be my next jersey purchase, especially after the season he had. Because another guy outside of Burrow right here, helped win me the championship. But like I said, it comes down to honestly. So the scenario is if Cincinnati wins and Denver loses to Kansas City, plus Miami loses to the Jets, Burrow and the boys are in the playoffs. So obviously everyone's going to try to
That
Not
very well could happen. I mean, Miami's not great. Jets could play spoiler,
yeah.
and you know, Denver, they need to win. Kansas City, they could sit Mahomes, but Kansas City still has a decent team. I mean, that's the thing I'm worried about, though. If they're sitting Mahomes,
If they sit for 2 weeks, and that's the thing, they're sitting for a while because if they have the bye, they have extra time to kind of sit and recuperate. So we'll see what happens.
good point.
Moving into the next game, the last game on that Saturday, which was also all these were pretty fun except for this game of scoring wise, was Rams win 13-9. I've been on their bandwagon for pretty much half the year at least, of just seeing McVay and what that team can do. A couple years ago, they sold all their first round picks. For years they were doing it. They bought themselves a championship. I think it was in 21, I believe. Insane to watch, them do that. Now, moving into 2024, they kept all their picks and they drafted defense. Had to pick, they had to, replace Aaron Donald. Not an easy task. Hall of Famer already. Um, you know, you get Jared Verse in the first, and then multiple other rookies. Not going to go through it. Kitchens had a couple big picks in the last couple of weeks, and then their linebacking core too. I think his name is Omar Spites. He came out big too, but just showing how the Rams could win a division around key rookies on defense. They're going to be a tough team. I think as long as they have Stafford and McVay in that system, they'll go as far as that. Kyler did have a big game, 321 in the air, but Puka Nakua with his 129 is a little bit too much for the Cardinals. And they could be a sneaky team in the playoffs too if they draw a Packer team, perhaps. I could see them upsetting them possibly. So we'll have to see how the seeding lies.
The Rams to me are similar-ish to the Bengals as kind of like a team that's just, the Rams, a month ago they were, in last place in that division, albeit it was only a game or two, out of first, but, they've kind of been on a path. They've been playing better. Some of the teams in their division haven't been. And, you know, um, the Rams they're one of those teams, especially with the weapons on offense, right? You have a Hall of Famer in Stafford where that guy can sling it with the best of them. And you've got some of the guys for him to throw it to with Kupp, Nakua, and your buddy Kyron, who's had another really good year. So, the names on offense are there. They're a team that can stun a lot of teams in this league, even the teams that are making the playoffs. Now, are they as complete as some of the other teams? No. But they're a team that now they're going to be in. It looks like, and it's a team just like Cincinnati. If Cincinnati sneaks in, I would not want to play them.
Right, exactly. Moving into our Sunday games, Buffalo, obviously, not much to say on this game. Buffalo torched the Jets. It was embarrassing, obviously, for the Jets. Rodgers kind of benched himself in the fourth quarter just because they were down like 40-0 at that point. Tyrod came in, got the 2 touchdowns, fed Garrett Wilson. Um, not much to say on the Jets. Buffalo's good. Didn't expect them to win. Jets to even put up a close game just because of how bad they are this year. They're a rudderless ship, very disciplined team out there. New coach is going to have to come in and be fiery. That's why I want to Vrabel because, he'll right the ship. And then obviously everyone's saying that Garrett Wilson's requesting a trade if Rodgers stays because basically it's just his usage. And you've seen it. Garrett Wilson's been almost like a top 5 wide receiver all year. Except for Rodgers isn't giving him the ball when he needs to, and kind of force fed Devontae too down the stretch.
Well, Devontae's his buddy, right? So I guess you got to deal with that if you're Wilson, and if you're a Jets fan, that's the last thing you want to hear because you should be able to have those two as one of the best tandems in the NFL, and if you have to lose Wilson, boy, is that a big loss. Even if you keep Devontae, but. It's a shame too because coming into the year, looking at those matchups on paper, Buffalo and the Jets, you're like, okay, if the Jets are as good as we think they should be, right? Like this is the game at the end of the year. Like, okay, like this could be for all the marbles, and
Right.
obviously, two different paths this year. But shout out to the Bills; they've been great again all year, and like I said, I hope if they have to play KC in the playoffs. I hope Josh Allen can take him down.
Yeah, it'll be tough in Arrowhead, that's for sure. Next game, Vegas at New Orleans. Two bad teams, except for Brock Bowers. I'm not going to talk much about this game other than him. Bowers, 7 catches for 77 yards, which put him over the 108 receptions for 144 yards this season, which he eclipsed Mike Ditka's 1961 tight end rookie record of 1,067 yards. And he also took out Puka Nakua's 2023 mark of 105 catches by a rookie. So, he's breaking records left and right. Took out Darren Waller's franchise record of 107 in a season. So, force feed him. That's what it is. He's generational talent.
Yeah, that dude is that dude, right? He's all the stories about him, like, oh, he's going to be lining up here, he's going to be that good. Yeah, he's surpassed everything. He's been unreal. And he's quickly asserted himself in 1 year as one of, if not maybe, like the top most coveted tight end in football. So,
Yeah.
and on a bad team too. I mean, you imagine if you had a legit quarterback thrown to him.
He will. He will next year. It's either going to be Shadir or Cam Ward. One of the two is going to be feeding him the ball next year. So, better things are coming for him. So hopefully they get a new coach in there as well. That isn't a complete joke. So we'll see.
We shall.
And then we got Indianapolis at New York. What a joke of a game. 45-33. This was a must win for Indianapolis to try to be in the playoffs, and they couldn't do it. And it just shows that they're just an unmotivated, badly coached, and badly owned team. And the Giants on the flip side, they should have kept trying to lose. To try to get the number 1 overall pick where they had it last week, and then they kind of ruined their chances at it now just based off of this playoff scenarios. So they'll have to get creative now and hope that they end up with Sanders.
Yeah, interesting that the Giants decided to win this one. Kind of a game that it was one of those games where I saw the score and I'm like, oh my, I was like, there's no way that was the score of that game. And then on top of that, the Giants won. Not a whole lot to say on this one. Good for the Giants, I guess. Maybe bad for them. But
what you could tip your hat to is Malik Neighbors went off for 171 and 2 touchdowns. So good for fantasy teams. And then Jonathan Taylor, too, also had his huge runs. The last 3 weeks, the guy's been, after he eliminated me from the playoffs, that dude's been on fire. 125 on the ground. I think he had 1 or 2 touchdowns. So, yeah.
We just talked about Bowers being a generational type guy. Neighbors is looking like he's one of those guys as well. So,
throw him in the category from wide receiver U from LSU. I mean, Jamar Chase, Jefferson, the list goes on and on now. Mike Neighbors is on that list.
Elite.
He is. He's elite. And then real quickly running through the Philadelphia game, they put a shellacking on Dallas with 2 backup QBs. Kenny Pickett got hurt in, I don't know what quarter it was, but he went down. The team still won the division. He fed Devontae Smith. He had a nice game. Saquon had 167 on the ground. As you mentioned earlier, he has 2,005 yards, and he needs 101 next Sunday to top Eric Dickerson's 2,105 with the Rams back in 1984. Don't think it's happening because it's a meaningless game, so there's no need to get him hurt, in my opinion. It'd be nice to see, cool, but I don't think they do it.
Yeah. Quick way to get
fired. Quick way to get fired.
You know what? We'll see. You don't always come that close. I mean, even I don't know where King Henry is this year, but he's not up there. I don't think he's as. I mean, Barkley's just had a marvelous season. I still think there's no way he wins the MVP, but let's just say for shits and giggles, he goes out there and runs for like 300 yards and 5 touchdowns.
In that scenario, he still doesn't win it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I still don't think. But that would be, like let's say he rushes for like 300 yards, right? He not only breaks Dickerson's record, but smashes it by like 200 yards. Still
Yeah.
something for you to think about. But yeah, Barkley, amazing year for him. And you know what? We'll see what happens with the Eagles. The Eagles, the first few weeks of the season, they kind of looked like and then they got on a freaking roll, started feeding him a lot more, kind of like what Baltimore did with King Henry, started feeding him more, and teams kind of just took off. So uh, we'll see how good the Eagles are come playoff time.
Yep, absolutely. And I think Jalen Hurts will come back for that at least, and he's got a little bit of time to rest up as well. Next game, Carolina at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay smacked them or shellacked them, as I said earlier, 48-14. Baker Mayfield threw for 359. Kept it going to our boy Mike Evans too, Mister 1000 too. I think he only needs like 101 yards. That one's possible because he also does play. They're in kind of a must-win situation as well, where if they win, um, yeah, if they win or tie, they're in, and then if Atlanta loses versus Carolina, they're in as well. So I'd like to see Baker just because he completely turned that team around. I mean, you're thinking of that first overall pick, with the Cleveland Browns, and led them to their first playoff win in years, and that organization let him go. So good to see that Baker look good.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think 5 touchdowns for him in this game.
Yep.
He's he's another one. Him and Darnold have resurrected their careers, and you gotta what they got some good coaching behind them now, and it's good to see from Baker. And you know the Bucks are another interesting team too. Come playoff time, I don't know how much I love them, but they're a team that could they could shock some people, especially with the way Baker's been playing, and they found Bucky Irving late in the season. He's been great. I think he had over 100 yards again. So
Yep.
um, they're an interesting team to say the least.
Yeah, those last couple wild card spots are going to be interesting too because they'll have to, whoever the Bucks end up facing, whether it's Green Bay, whether it's Washington, it's going to be a tough matchup, and you kind of hope that they don't face off against Minnesota or Detroit, which we'll touch on them later, but still really tough. Tennessee at Jacksonville. Jacksonville pulled out that win. I have no notes on this one other than the fact that they won 20-13. Um, you know, Tajay Spears got his chance. Brian Thomas Jr., we mentioned him earlier. He looked really good and proved that he's the number one wide receiver.
I was just going to say that's really it, right? A couple of lackluster teams to say the least,
Yeah.
and Brian Thomas Jr. just asserting himself at towards the top of the rookie wide receiver rankings. I mean, he's had a better year probably than Neighbors, and a more consistent year. I mean, I've got Neighbors. He's had a few weeks where he's had trouble having quarterbacks getting the ball, especially in the end zone. Brian Thomas, man, you look up, especially his last couple of weeks too. I mean, he's been a monster all year for a team that's just not very good. And yeah, I mean, yeah, not a lot to say other than that, but he's great.
Yep, low draft picks for both of them. Miami at Cleveland. Miami sticking around in the playoff race. Obviously, Tyler Huntley led them to it. Led them to victory. Kind of did it both in the air and on the on the run. Cleveland just is a rudderless ship. It seems like it sucks because they have a good coach. It's just no QB, no nothing. Tyreek Hill had a nice day as well. And we'll see. We'll see what they do. They'll probably beat the Jets, so we'll see what ends up happening with them.
Yeah, a couple of teams I'm not really too interested in. No offense to either team. Good for Miami to win what their eighth game or something, but yeah, you're playing the bad news Browns.
Yep. Yep. And then, more exciting game, Green Bay at Minnesota. Broadway Sam Darnold doing his thing out there. He's going to get paid, which is awesome. Hopefully, the Minnesota sticks with him, and then we can kind of see how long he can hold this out. But 300 yards, or 377 yards, led them down for that last touchdown that put them ahead. So Good for him. The team is really united around him, which is kind of great to see because that's how he was at USC too, and that was the cool part watching him like grow. Was that was what he was supposed to be with the Jets, but they never surrounded him with anything, so everyone had that stink about Sam Darnold. But he kind of proved it now that after a year in San Francisco with Shanahan, and then going over to Kevin O'Connell.
You look up at the end of the year, and there's a couple of really, really, really good matchups next week. And
Yeah,
next week, I'm sure you already know, I saw your eyes light up a little bit there. Detroit with Minnesota. I think it's in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, but that is going to be a wallop of a game. I would assume most people are going to take Detroit to win that game, but I do not think that's going to be a walk in the park at all with the way Minnesota's playing. And like you said, that team, like you said, they've rallied around Darnold. He looks great, and they've got a little bit of everything. And I'll say this, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, but the best receiver in that game is going to be Justin Jefferson, and he can impact games in ways that very few can. Amon-Ra is right up there too, but for my
yeah,
money, with Jefferson going, Hawkinson's back, Jordan Addison is great as
he's
well.
emerged. Yeah,
So you're talking about two heavyweights. You're talking about Foreman and Tyson going at it next week, and it is going to be a whale of a game. I still don't know who I'm taking in that game. As far as this game this week with Minnesota Green Bay, this game I think this one and then the last game with Washington, those are the two I saw the most. And Minnesota goes up big in that third. By the end of the third, they're up 17, and you're thinking this game's probably over. Green Bay, man, they storm back. They're a young team. You forget how young they are, and they're homegrown, but um, good for Minnesota, and I can't wait for next week.
yep, exactly. One thing to note too is apparently Jordan Love can't beat a good team.
You know what? He's gonna have to get the monkey off his back sooner or later. But
Yeah,
like you said, Minnesota, they are a good team.
yep. Last but not least, Atlanta at Washington came down to overtime, and Jaden Daniels, pulled it out. A couple coaching mistakes from Atlanta that probably could have gone the other way. But Jaden Daniels showing why he's the rookie of the year. He led the team and game in with 227 passing yards and 127 on the ground. It's a good team. At halftime, I thought Atlanta was going to run away with it, but they proved me wrong.
Yeah, that game kind of swung back and forth a little bit. I think Washington, I forget, they might have scored first, and then Atlanta, like you said with Bijan, you're like, all right, this guy, as a Bijan owner, love seeing him go off early in that game. And then, yeah, he's non existent in the second half. You're looking up at halftime, the guy's got 20 or more points. You're thinking, okay, like this guy could have at least 30, 35 point game. He could go out for 40 or 50 if they really wanted him to. And I don't know why, like you said, they should have fed him the rock a lot more. But Washington is very good. Jaden Daniels is that guy. He's making Caleb look not as good with the 11-5 Commanders, and you got to give him credit, man. He is fun to watch. Atlanta, they're a good team. They're not a great team, I wouldn't say, but um, still to bring the team back, win in overtime. What can you say about the kid? I'm excited to see him in the playoffs.
Yep, across the board. I think you hit it with it. It's gonna be a fun playoff run. We're gonna have a lot of good matchups. Minnesota looks good. Detroit looks good. A lot of good teams. I mean, most of that. With Philly being 13-3, the run that they're on, they're insane. The Rams could be sneaky. I really don't know who we're picking out of the NFC North, but you have to again give it to Detroit right now with all the injuries, just because. But you kind of look at Dan Campbell, and you're kind of like scratching your head just with like what bonehead move is he going to make to lose the game. So we'll see what happens going forward and tonight.
Yeah, we'll see. And one thing, we'll see if Montgomery is able to come back. But Gibbs it's his backfield now, so we'll see if he can kind of muster up a few more touches and all that.
Yep, absolutely. Any closing statements?
You know what? You asked me if I'm a Happy New Year guy. I'll say this: Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's from the Gabagools. We'll close out on that.